and actually um, staff and graduate students were even able to apply for our program last summer. And so what we want to talk about today is the purpose of the program and how we rolled it out and what we did with the materials afterward, and also show you some of the work that our faculty did, and then we'll take questions. Okay. So we started with this program. Actually, our dean, um, he really wanted us to do something like this with AI and OER. And so I'm the OER librarian, and so it made sense for me to work on this, but then it was like, who is the AI person? And so I went and I asked David because I knew that he was interested in artificial intelligence, and I had heard him talk about it before, and then he so graciously agreed to do this with me. But there were other reasons too why we wanted to have this program at UNM. For example, at UNM, we did a study and UNM students were found to be burdened by high textbooks costs. And then also with the OER research, for example, OER can help improve student learning outcomes, can help to reduce drop, fail, and withdrawal rates. And that's some of the reasons why we've been working on expanding OER at the University of New Mexico. But additionally, faculty need support to explore these things. They're really, really busy. And so applying AI tools requires time and effort, as does OER. And so there's this sort of long-standing kind of standard where if faculty are integrating OER, we compensate them for that time. And so we wanted to do that also with faculty integrating AI. Other reasons why we wanted to do this are, oh, right, labor, and then that labor can reinforce existing inequalities in academia, and so we definitely didn't want to do that. You want to take some of the slides next, David?
Sure. So our goals were to do it, our program was very experimental in that we didn't have a set product that we wanted people to create. We wanted people to explore and experiment with using AI and see what they could come up with. And some of our participants, as you'll see, came up with some really interesting projects that we couldn't have anticipated. We also wanted to try to create a cohort of people who could work together and learn from each other. And one of, I think, the really fantastic outcomes of our program is that many of our cohort are still in contact. And actually, one of our initial cohort co-led a program on using AI for pedagogy this summer. So our initial learners are becoming co-teachers here as well. Could you go to the next slide? Um, so our program was grounded in Malcolm Knowles' adult learning principles. This focuses on understanding the need for learning, giving people self-direction, and making sure that they have the tools to and the resources and community to learn things in a self-directed way. We began with some very structured instruction, so lectures about an awful lot about OER, but also about using AI. Our second section, our participants developed their own projects, and we had weekly meetings where people gave us updates, bounced ideas off each other, did things like that. And then at the end, we did polishing based on that peer feedback. Can we do the next slide? So we took about 2 months. We were initially planned to have 6 to 10 individuals, and we had people submit an application based on their interests. We were going to compensate them with $1,000 for their participation. We initially sent this out to all faculty, staff, and graduate students. One complication we ran into in our application phase is that we found out that because of bureaucratic rules, some staff and actually some faculty as well, based on where they were bureaucratically within our organization, we weren't allowed to pay them. And that was a real problem because we wanted to make sure people were fairly compensated. So I think if we were to do this again, we would want to be a little bit more specific. First, we would want to understand who we can actually pay, and be more targeted in our applications. Um,
Also, another
I'm
thing that ended up happening was that like I pushed to pay the adjunct faculty, which was super stressful. But we ended up being able to pay them. It was like the rules kind of changed a little bit, but not all the departments knew how they changed. So we definitely had to push to get a couple of people into the program. So that's also just like kind of a thing that I didn't know that I would have to deal with when working in OER is how much I would be dealing with like trying to get people paid. And that is like a super stressful part of this whole thing.
Yeah, the adjuncts in particular, I think it was that they weren't employed over the summer, and so we couldn't pay them, but we were able to like retroactively pay them for when they were had a contract in the fall. And some departments were willing to do that, and other departments were not. And uh, yeah, a problem of inequality at our university.
Yeah, it basically depended on like how supportive was the department of their adjuncts, which was crazy. So this QR code, I also wanted to include materials that we created to kind of jumpstart the program. So this is just actually a press release. And if anybody wants to do something like this, like totally, like check out this, you could copy this material. I don't care. And use it to create a press release. Because that's what one way that we were recruiting people was doing a press release on our main UNM newsroom page. And then this is just a snapshot of the different people who participated in the program to give you an idea of all of the different folks who were participating in this with us. We wanted to do like a wide range of people from different departments and disciplines, so that way when we were all meeting as a group, we could have like diverse perspectives and encourage each other in a bunch of different ways. So we started with 7 people from these different programs, and even different campuses as well, because UNM has 5 different campuses in addition to having our health sciences center too. So I'm going to take this part because it's talking about OER, and then David can talk more about AI. So this was the first phase of our program, phase 1, Introduction to OER and AI. So we started off with just giving folks some key concepts about OER. We also did a pre-program survey, and then a post-program survey, and the results are later on in this presentation. But the faculty and the staff, they didn't have as much knowledge about OER in the beginning of this. So we started off with basic principles about OER, why we're doing this, a little bit of history about OER, a little bit also about copyright, information about open licenses too. So we started off with a lot of content that we gave faculty and staff. And then we talked about why we wanted to combine AI and OER. And David, do you want to talk about the introduction to machine learning and the discussion of LLMs?
Sure. So we gave a fairly basic introduction to machine learning and AI. We had a mixture of people with experience in our cohort. We had some people who used ChatGPT regularly. We had other people who had never opened up ChatGPT before the program, and we had to help them with logging in. So a lot of this was both understanding the sort of basic principles that go into the back end of how an LLM works at, frankly, a fairly simplistic level because that's the level that I can provide. Um, we also talked about practical ways to improve LLM outputs. So we based this on the clear principles that Leo Lowe developed, which that stands for. See if I can always remember that. Concise, logical.
I'm trying to think of an E word. Evidence? Is it evidence? Maybe.
Concise, logical, explicit, adaptive, and reflective.
Mhm. Good
And
job.
sorry, I didn't have that ready with me right away.
That's okay. I accidentally switched to the next slide. Is that okay, or should I go back?
Yeah, let's keep going.
Okay, cool. Yeah, and so we talked about also, so in week 2, we kind of framed the material in terms of ethics. And so we looked at OER ethical considerations. So like, how do you attribute OER? What's the difference between attributing and citing OER materials? How to also like ethically adapt OER materials to make sure that you're crediting the people before you, and also some of the differences between like modifying OER material versus citing with scholarly material. Like that's a little bit hard to grasp, especially if you're like me and you're Gen X and your English teachers were so strict and you grew up on MLA format. And so at first it felt almost a little bit wrong when I was adapting OER because I wasn't putting quotation marks in places. So we talked a little bit about that too. And then David covered the ethical issues in AI too.
So for AI, the ethical issues are obviously complicated and ever evolving. We talked a little bit about the environment and environmental issues, but those were, for the most part, beyond the scope of our program. A lot of our discussion was conversations about where it would be appropriate to use AI and where it would be inappropriate to use AI. So, for example, in communicating with students, should you be disclosing using that you're using AI if you're communicating with students, which and most of our participants agreed that we should. Should you use AI to provide feedback for students, and in what cases? Is it more appropriate to use AI to provide feedback to a rough draft versus a final draft, or a quiz, that sort of question? One thing that was really interesting is that the norms that our participants came into the program with uh, didn't always agree. Sometimes some of our participants were very insistent that any communication with a student should come from an actual person and that AI shouldn't take a role there, whereas others uh, had a much more radiated view of where that should be. I think because it's a conversation about norms, we didn't end up in a uh, consistent place, but we ended up in a place where at least people had a chance to examine uh, their own ideas and place them, uh, be able to justify them and explain them. I think we can probably go
We
next
talked
slide.
about how not to violate FERPA too.
Oh yes, and how not to violate, which is also
It's a big deal. And then,
so.
yeah.
The last section was primarily focused on I agree that you should disclose if your email is written by AI. The last section was primarily focused on AI, and it was much more specific ways that you could use AI to do specific tasks. So if you are using it to write a chapter, what you can do to make that chapter better, and why you should still have a human in the loop to make sure that there aren't errors because AI hallucinates. Um, how you could use it to create test banks, and ways that you can engage students with that. Things like adjusting texts for different reading levels. Using AI as sort of a sample student to go over your own uh, lectures and materials to make sure, or to have a sort of pre-reader that can have a uh, sense of how well you're actually communicating towards a student. And then we had our participants begin developing their own OER materials there in class, and they built that. All right, next slide.
Yeah, my mouse was hiding. So then phase two, we moved into phase two. And so this was our development, OER development and experimentation time. We met, so the participants were working on OER on their own. And then we would meet and talk about their progress, and help give them like suggestions for what they could do, with what they're creating. We also, I didn't put this in here, but we were meeting virtually. So it was, I mean, that's how we were able to have like someone from Taos and Albuquerque and everyone, and this was during the summer. So all the sessions were virtual. But David, did you have anything else to add? No?
Nope,
Okay.
I think
Okay, cool. And then, so that was weeks 4 to 6. And then the last phase of this, it was about 8 weeks. We were working on a couple of chapters. We have a faculty guide for OER, and we wanted a couple of chapters to give faculty guidance for how they could include AI into their OER development. So David and I created a couple of chapters and then shared it with the participants, and they gave us feedback on like how accurate the chapters were and maybe what was missing, as far as like what did they need as they were learning about using the AI tools with creating OER. And then we ended up creating these 2 chapters, and we have the participants listed as also co-authors. And that's my cat, and she's really loud. Um, and then the last week was a little bit of a showcase. Participants shared the OER that they created, and we just had like a really good discussion about their progress and also how they planned to implement the material into their classes in that following fall. And I don't know, was everybody ready to pilot the materials in the fall? I feel like.
I don't think absolutely everyone was, but I
Mhm.
think the majority were. They're
It was
they're
amazing, like how quickly they were able to integrate the material into their curriculum, I thought. Um, but yeah, it was really cool to see. And then our findings, you want to take this section, David?
Sure. So in the pre-survey data, most of our participants had at least some experience using AI, although, as I mentioned before, not everyone. We had a couple people who hadn't used it at all. Almost all of our participants, though, had very little or no experience creating OER, which was interesting that these were all people who were interested in creating OER, but had very little knowledge and felt kind of intimidated by that. And I think that possibly because this was a more experimental program as opposed to a program that uh, had defined goals and outcomes, that gave them the confidence to apply and actually build some real OER that they could create. Um, Participants, as you'd hope to find in a survey, they all reported themselves as more familiar with AI and OER, although there were a few interesting findings, especially with AI, that there are a few participants that we were able to identify because we had so few that their confidence in their AI knowledge went down on the post-survey, which is maybe a sign that they learned that they didn't know quite as much as they thought in the pre-survey. So even if the numbers go down, that's a good sign that they learned something. Um, so these are some more specifics on our survey. So average literacy score was 3 in the pre-survey and 3.8 in the post-survey. Uh, in their respective three fields, 3.2 to 3.5. In the post survey, no one rated their AI literacy as higher than 4, which again, I think shows that people recognize that they did not know as much uh, as they thought they did at the beginning. Um, all participants felt comfortable using AI at the end, and the most significant change was in their comfortable uh, their comfort creating OER. At the beginning, the average score was 1.8, pretty uncomfortable, and by the end, they didn't feel like experts, but they felt like they were in the world of OER, and that's valuable.
Yeah,
So,
definitely.
or do you have some?
Sorry. Um, so yeah, and so then these are just samples of some of the projects that the faculty created. So we had one of the faculty members, he used the AI to like as a tool for students to apply and to create case studies for business courses. He also wanted to replace those like expensive case studies that students end up having to pay for. So making it more hands-on. Students were contributing and sort of like creating material instead of just being like passive participants. Um, and then the firms that they chose to create case studies for, they were facing challenges in product development, innovation, and integration. So he gave them a choice about what they could create case studies on and focused on firms that needed a little bit of maybe change to create growth. And then our other faculty member, another faculty member, Jeff Hodek. So he is a secondary math like he teaches in the College of Education and he teaches our future like secondary math fact like teachers who are going to be working in the state of New Mexico. So he created this GPT for math. He got feedback from pre-service and veteran teachers, and the purpose of the GPT was to differentiate the curriculum for students, which is a very difficult thing, especially for our teachers who are in the classroom every day for students. So the purpose of this was to help alleviate the teacher's workload. So he's like teaching our future teachers in New Mexico how to use this for their students and to differentiate the curriculum, which like for me, I think that's amazing, especially having kids who are in the school system. And who, they're all at different levels in one classroom. So he was helping teachers with that.
Can I jump in to talk just a little bit about Jeff's
Yes,
project?
please go ahead.
So what Jeff, when he began building this, what he described this as a worthwhile project generator. So the idea, or worthwhile problem generator. So the idea is that you can choose a topic, a thing that you're trying to teach, a amount of time and difficulty that you want, a grade level, and add in students' interests, and it will create problems based on this. And the teachers still have to work out the answers to make sure that they're correct because LLMs are bad at math. But the idea is that you can choose what you're teaching, for who you're teaching it, and it will create things that are customized and hopefully will show students why the mathematical principles they're being taught matter. Um, the one thing he did find is that it was very bad at estimating time that it would take. So anyway, sorry to interrupt there.
No, go ahead, go ahead. I'm just like I'm just speeding through things, so definitely tell me to slow down. Um, and then this is the last project that we have just to show you today, but there were other projects. So am I saying this right? Dav AI? Dav AI. So it's a customized chatbot that provides pedagogically appropriate feedback for students in Irina Meyer's Russian studies classes. And so she worked so much on this to create this chatbot that has 6 different personalities to represent different regions, dialects, and social backgrounds from the Russian-speaking world. And it's the first multi-personality AI bot designed for Russian language learning with a focus on regional variation, dialectical diversity, and then identities. There's something on top of that word, so I don't see it on my screen. But yeah, and then she was also super amazing. Do you have anything to add for hers, David?
Sure. So Arena's project was that the problem with teaching Russian is that Russian classes teach standard Russian. And a lot of people who speak Russian don't speak standard Russian. And so her goal was to create a way that her students could interact with different dialects of Russian in a way that was still grammatically appropriate for students in first or second year Russian classes. Um, are we going to give a show that later, Jennifer? Yes. Okay. Um,
Yeah, so if you want to check out her article, she actually wrote about this. She beat us. We also wanted to write an article, but she already got hers published. And so this is it, Dav AI designing a custom chat GPT bot for Russian language learners. So y'all can check out her article and see how she developed this as well. And it's also open access, so you can access that. And let's see, and we have recommendations for if you would like to develop a similar project on your campuses or at your institutions. So go ahead. Did you say something, David? No? Okay, sorry. So our recommendations were, if possible, to build upon existing OER programming to recruit participants. As you're implementing the program, do a needs assessment to identify the baseline of faculty experience to help you figure out, like, where do you need to start with the programming? And then also create customized curriculum to focus on the gaps in skills and knowledge of the faculty. And then as the years go on after the program, sustain it with ongoing support, refresher sessions and updates and developments, which David has done by holding a second iteration of this program this past summer. Other recommendations that we have would be to definitely think about applying a critical perspective to understand how AI can contribute to algorithmic discrimination. So have conversations about that, get the faculty and your staff thinking about that. A good way to create the program would be to promote hands-on, collaborative, experiential learning, because these are like gifted, talented people. Like in my experience, like the OER people on campus are always like the most giving of their time. They're so focused on their students. You just give them the information and then they take off and they go in these new directions. So, I mean, definitely it helps to foster that within the program. And then just to evaluate the program as well, evaluate the effectiveness, get some participant feedback to apply iterative improvements. And then lastly, disseminate your findings to share them with others so that they can also build similar programs. And then we also have, these are the chapters that we created in our faculty guide. So if you would like to check them out, this is the QR code for them. There's also a couple of videos in these chapters where the faculty are talking about how they created their program. So you can actually see Irina Meyer and Jeff Hodak talking about creating their custom GPTs. And I think that's it. Did you have anything to add, David? I'm sorry. I got right to questions. Nope. Okay.
You stole Leo from us, Judith?
Yes, coming to the University of Virginia.
Leo hired both of us. So we're we're grateful to him.
Well, we're looking forward to his arrival.
Yeah, if anyone has any questions, please go ahead. You can unmute, or if you prefer, you can just ask in the chat. I think that should also work well.
So I'll ask one question. Do you feel like you've exhausted the interest among the faculty in deploying AI for OER? I know sometimes
Um,
we do these programs and we get the early adopters, and then it turns out those are the only adopters until like a new cycle of interest starts up again.
So I'll speak to that a little bit. I'm not sure if we've exhausted. It's hard to say if we've exhausted the interest in the combination of AI and OER. We definitely have not exhausted interest in AI. This summer we did a program on AI and pedagogy, because one of the issues that we ran into in our AI and OER problem was how do we make our AI projects open, especially when using uh, proprietary bots. But for our AI and pedagogy program this summer, we had uh, more than 3 times as many applicants as we could fit into our program, and more applicants than our AI and OER program. So faculty see the need to address this. Even if they're skeptical about using AI, some of those people are also very interested in learning about this so that they can find ways to maintain if not an AI-free environment, an environment in which AI is addressed, if that makes sense. But yes, it's continuing to be interesting. We're likely to run future programs.
Thank you.
And OER is kind of still newish at UNM. I've only worked there since 2022. So there are definitely faculty who are still interested in creating projects. Any other questions? Y'all are being too easy on us.
Yeah, I guess there's a lot of I guess there's just a lot of kind of like people reflecting about AI. What do you think is the most popular form of AI that people use? Do they use ChatGPT? Are they using Copilot in your experience?
So on our campus, I think that ChatGPT is still the most commonly used. I think they have the early mover, uh, the early mover. Uh, I'm blanking on the word here. Because they're early, people are used to it. But we have some people who use Copilot because our campus pays for a Copilot license, so everyone has access to that. In my experience, the people who are the most into AI tend to use Claude. But I don't have any survey data or anything like that, so that's anecdotal. It looks like Shannon has a question.
Hi, yes, just to kind of jump onto what was just shared. As a practitioner, I am embracing AI, and I am very excited about all the possible benefits and also very aware of a lot of caveats with it. However, one of the biggest problems I'm having is it's just an industry that's exploding. There are so many options, and I don't know if people would feel comfortable to put in the chat or for people to share, yes, which are you using and possibly for what? Because I'm new to this, and so knowing which one may be more appropriate. I feel like the K-12, like Magic School or Congo Migo, like I'm hearing a lot about K through 12, but in higher ed, I'm just curious, what are people using and maybe for what? So I'd love any feedback, whether it's typed in the chat or people want to share if possible.
Yeah, I definitely encourage anyone who's working with this to put their own in the chat. It does seem like there are a lot of people who are building things that are customized to their own syllabi and their own disciplines. I know that people are experimenting with ChatGPT's new study mode where it tries to not give you the answers, because that's one of the major problems with all the LLMs is they like to give you the answers, and that's not great for teaching. Um, it's new enough that I haven't heard specific feedback. I don't know if you've heard anything, Jennifer.
No, I do. I mean, we have access to Copilot. It just randomly pops up when I'm typing and it drives me bananas. And then I've used ChatGPT, but we had a subscription to that the library was paying for the more you know, the paid subscription where you could ask as many questions as you wanted. So I mean, partially that's just that's what was given to us.
And what I'm seeing with especially Leslie's comment here in the chat is one thing that is very true is that AIs are often they're beginning to specialize, and looking for an AI that specializes in something that you're looking to do might be a good way to go, because not everything is optimized for everything.
I'm trying to remember the name of one that someone was told me about that they were using, so that's why I'm being quiet right now. Can't remember. Yeah, I mean, if anyone is interested, if they want this PowerPoint, like I could share it with you too. I know that these are being recorded, but I mean, if you want any of these materials, feel free to email, and we can share them. Here's my email in the chat.
Yeah, thank you so much for doing that, Jennifer.
Well, thanks everyone for coming.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, thank you, David and Jennifer. This was fantastic. Thank you for sharing your experience. All the sharing that we do, it really helps build a better OER world, and using AI tools is such a new thing. So to share what we're experiencing and how we use it is really useful, and it's an amazing insight into your world. Yeah, so thank you so very, very much. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. So for everybody going to the next session, it should start at about 11, so you have some time to relax and reset. I am going to stop the recording now, and we'll transition over in about 15 minutes. So thank you, everyone.
You.